Okay, greetings and welcome, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so very much for taking time out of your very busy schedules with a last minute request that you be part of this emergency consultation. For those who don't know, but I think everyone here probably knows, my name is Nikichi Taifa, attorney and counselor at law. I'm the executive director of the Reparation Education Project. And again, we really appreciate you joining this session this evening on a very time sensitive basis. Before we start, I just want to, okay, people I think are still coming in, so let me just wait just one more moment. I would like for everyone while you're waiting to please put your name, your organization, and your city or state in the chat. We will not go around and do introductions because we want to save as much substantive time for the agenda at hand. So please put your name, organization, if you have one, and your city or state in the chat at this time. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go on and start. First of all, we want to just call upon all of the ancestors to be with us in this moment as we seek to be part of a very critical process. So we just call upon all of our ancestors, our reparationist ancestors, our family ancestors, our ancestors that moved and grooved us to do the things that we do. And we welcome their presence. We stand on their shoulders and we ask that they be with us to guide us. Before we start, I do want to kind of very quickly go over some principles of engagement, what we usually do when we start all meetings, and they are to respect each other in language and action, to listen with an open mind, to criticize the problem, not the person, to ask to clear up unclarity, to assume the best intent of others, and to contribute out of love. And if you don't feel you can adhere to those principles of engagement, we invite you to go on and leave at this time. No problem whatsoever, no judgment. But if you feel you cannot abide by those principles, you're invited to leave during the course of the consultation. If we find persons not adhering to these principles, you'll be kind of removed to go back to the waiting room. So we're all good. So most of us who are on this call, if not all, know that something very monumental occurred in March 25th at the United Nations. Okay. And this meeting today is what we call helping to contribute to next steps to that UN declaration. That declaration, which was tabled by President John Dramani of the President of the Republic of Ghana, in his role as the African Union champion for reparations, tabled a declaration on the floor of the United Nations, calling that the transatlantic trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement was the gravest crime against humanity. And as part of that convening, 123 nations overwhelmingly voted yes in support. 52, it might have been 53, my brain is, I'm just going totally by memory, abstained, and only three voted against: the United States, Israel, and Argentina. So it has been announced that June 17th to 19th, there will be high-level next steps on Reparatory Justice are convening in Accra, Ghana, which will focus on translating this historic UN resolution into common, actionable global framework aimed at developing coordinated policy approaches, institutional frameworks, and mechanisms for sustained international engagement. So what we're doing here today, right now, as part of this emergency consult, is to discuss and compile and to kind of coalesce us in the United States civil society on priorities for reparations that will help to contribute to these ongoing efforts to develop a global framework and follow up to that March 25th UN resolution. Africa, the continent of Africa, the countries of Africa, CARICOM, the countries of the Caribbean, Latin American countries, U.S. settler persons who reside in U.S. settler colonial situations, such as us in the United States and our colleagues in the UK, are all coalescing to help to frame what will be these next steps. And there have been various priorities that have been advanced kind of around the globe. And we will kind of share some of those and reflect on them, see where there are gaps, see where there are areas of improvement, see where there are unique scenarios related to our own situation here in what I call respectfully, or maybe not respectfully, the belly of the beast. That's where we are. So first of all, before I begin, let me just ask if there are any questions, and you can use the raise hand feature on the Zoom.
Hey, yes, I have some questions, and Kishi, greetings. This is Daruba.
Okay, so raise your hand, and that is my dear brother Daruba bin Wahab, former political prisoner of war. I can hear you. What's your question, brother Daruba? Are you calling from the United States, or are you abroad right now?
I'm in Ghana. I've been in Ghana for the last, 15 years.
Okay, so you're there now. Okay, what is your question?
Yeah. Well, I don't have a question. I need to give you some advice, but I'll let other people ask questions, and I'll come through later on.
So you want to give me public advice, or you want to? Can you just text me if it's private advice, or what, my brother?
Well, in order for the diaspora to have a cogent position, you see, you have to understand what's taking place over here and what's taking place with this conference. And you know, the keynote speaker is
so hold on, Brother Daruba, hold on. I don't want to go there right now, if that's okay.
Well, I think you should know that the keynote speaker for this conference is
that okay? And then maybe if there's some additional context that you want to give, then I will entertain it at that time. But I don't want to entertain that right now at this moment. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's okay. That's why I said you could list your questions, and I'll come back later.
Gotcha.
But you got to remember, we're a 4-hour time difference, so it's like right.
I know. Well, that's why I asked where you was at. Okay, so Sister Shakira, are you able to share your screen? We did have some technical difficulties, so if we're not able to enable that feature, I will go on without sharing. But Shakira, if you're able to do that, go on, please do.
Can everyone see the document?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you make it just a little bit bigger?
Well, actually, hold it. That might be.
If not, no problem. Y'all's eyes are probably better than my old eyes.
Does this work a little bit more?
Okay, that's good. Yeah. So what has been done is kind of looking at stuff that's around the globe. Well, okay, things that people have been talking about and proffering and the like, and putting them into clusters. And we have 4 clusters. We're going to go through those clusters. I want to add to, put frameworks around, or subtract from, okay? And we're going to try the cluster one, the first one, just to see how this process goes. And if we need to pivot, we will. But I think that this is the best process that will work. And there is someone taking specific notes, and we are recording this. And also, I will state that at the conclusion of this, or sometime later on this evening, everyone will receive a survey where you will have the opportunity to specifically put your responses in the survey that will be codified, compiled, and be part of a global effort, I guess you could say, that will hopefully help to inform the ultimate outcome document that will be presented June 18th in Accra, Ghana, as part of the high-level strategic convening. I will say this: whatever we come up with in this emergency consult, it's just seeking to ensure that there is as much that we are able to have as much input as possible. Many times we in the United States are kind of glossed over and forgotten about, whereas the countries on the continent or in CARICOM and the Caribbean states and all seem to get priority. We want to ensure that our voices are heard as well. That's not to say that everything or even anything we say will be adopted, but there won't even be a chance unless we come up with our own framework. So, cluster one is recognition and accountability. And the first aspect under recognition and accountability is acknowledgement and apology. And what we're talking about there is like formal acknowledgement of historical injustices. And I see someone's hands. Let me just go through the first one, and then I will open it up for people to raise hands after we go through each areas of the cluster. So everyone will have the opportunity who wishes to be heard on a certain aspect. So if that's okay, my brother, Dr. Kalfani, I thought I saw your hand. So just hold on for a moment. And Shakira, you please help me see the hands when we're ready for that, okay? Okay, so acknowledgement and apology. We're talking about formal acknowledgement of historical injustices, including enslavement, colonialism, genocide, and their enduring consequences. Ensuring an accurate historical record is the foundation of reparatory justice. States, institutions, and other responsible actors should formally apologize, should formally acknowledge wrongdoing, and offer unconditional apologies as a basis for healing, reconciliation, and renewed relationships. And I want to see if there's any, if anyone has any commentary with respect to acknowledgement and unconditional apologies. And for those in the United States, we know that the Senate in 2008, I think it is, did pass a resolution calling for an apology, but their apology came with conditions saying you cannot use our apology as part of justification for any claim for reparations. So again, we're talking about unconditional apology. So Shakira, do you see any hands?
I can't see the hands right now because I have to stay on.
You're on the thingamajigam. Okay, well, okay. Oh, I see a hand. Safiwe, I want to see any other hands. I'm going to call on you because I see your hand first. But are there any other hands for apology, acknowledgement, and apology? Okay, everyone has to mute themselves. Let's see if I can mute. Okay, I can mute people. Okay, Brother Safiwe, Valenka, introduce yourself and say what your question or comment is. And also, the little proviso that I just shared, is there anything you want to add or subtract from that? And I'm going to say, because I know who I'm talking to, we have a whole lot of different areas that I know you might want. So you don't have to put it all into this area. Brother Safiwe, talk to us.
Yes. On this particular subject, I simply want to remind us that we need to take a close look at how apologies have been used to shield the guilty parties from legal liability. I dropped a link in the chat called Western Apologies for Slavery, Using the Legal Shield of Regret and Sorrow to Trap African Sovereignty Inside the Domestic Legislative Apparatus. That is my study on how apologies have traditionally been used as a way to block legal liability. We need to look at that. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Brother Sifiwe. And just to let you know that when the survey is available, I'm almost certain there's going to be an opportunity to include links as part of the survey in there. So thank you very much. Dr. Niamu Muid.
Greetings, everyone. I just continuing where Sifway is coming from. I'm wondering if the apology includes non-repetition. In other words, the languaging of the apology, does it include non-repetition, or is that included in another cluster? And I also want to make the suggestion that if there's a way of putting these clusters in the chat, we could see them, and then our questions could be better, focused rather, you know what I mean? It might help.
Okay, so thank you for raising that. Okay, Shakira's on it right now. Okay, it's going to be in the chat. Thank you. But we're going to go point by point. So don't, yeah. So thank you very much. And with respect to the issue of repetition, all of those 5 areas from the UN everyone's been talking about that. So I'm sure that will be part of the outcome document. But I think you're saying to have it specifically, that a recommendation would be to have it specifically included in the whole recognition and accountability cluster. Is that correct?
In the apology statement.
In the apology statement.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. I see a hand. Okay. Dr. Kalfani, Akil Kalfani from Essex, and one of the experts on all of this. Talk to us, my brother.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate what you're doing here today. I just finished a meeting with I sit on the African Union Committee of Experts on Reparations, and they're developing a framework. The framework is almost done, and it's going to the African Union 55 country heads of state. And one of the things I want for us to think about is, since I sit there, that I am willing to take this document to that body so that it is used, analyzed in our incorporation as we're developing the framework that's going to be used by the African Union for reparations, because this body is mandated. There was a statutory call by the African Union for this body, and so then this body then will is the first time actually there's a U.S. and a CARICOM representative on an official African Union body. So I think that we have the opportunity to really have our voice heard in a forceful way by having somebody there. And so whatever I can do to help to galvanize the document, and the framework is not finished. So this is actually an opportune moment to be able to get things in there. I was going to be in Ghana, but not going to be anymore, just because I have a conflict. But there will be representatives from the committee,
African Union Committee of Experts.
the African Union Committee of Experts on Reparations. So and then there's a sister body, which is the African Union legal representatives on reparations. And so then we had a joint meeting last week with them, and that we're pulling together a joint document from that. And then there's going to be a summary document that's going to the heads of state. And so I already voiced that we need to make sure that there's representation from African Americans, so that having a document go to that body is going to be a powerful position. And since I've been sitting on different committees, we've struggled to consolidate a document. So I know that the ancestors are with us this time, and we're going to get a document together that will enable us to have a consolidated voice. We don't have to agree on everything. We just need a document to be able to
Yes.
go, so that we then have our voice heard, and we don't sit. I'll just let that be, so that we go forward strong and powerful. So thank you.
Dr. Kalfani, thank you so very much for that. And you are absolutely correct. There are numerous bodies meeting and conferring with respect to this, whether it's on the African continent, whether it's in CARICOM, whether it's in CELAC, whether it's in the UK. And we wanted to make sure that we had something going on here. So we'll definitely coordinate with you with respect to that. So thank you very much. Dr. Vicky Casanova Willis, talk to us and introduce yourself as well.
Greetings, everyone. Yes, I'm Dr. Vicky Casanova Willis. I serve with the Office of HBCU Development and International Cooperation, and also with IHRAM, the International Human Rights Association of American Minorities, which is an NGO with ECOSOC status with the UN. I wanted to just mention, since we're just looking at cluster one, right?
Right.
The acknowledgement. Right, the acknowledgement and apology piece, echoing and agreeing with what we've heard comments up to now, but I wanted to just state that again, if we are providing guidance or of a framework for what apologies should minimally include, an acknowledgement, I'd like to urge that the acknowledgement and or apology reference the framing and the language from this latest resolution, right? Because it is deeper and broader. For example, an apology that acknowledges the ongoing harm is going to lead to a more expansive reparations, what will ultimately be delivered, as opposed to looking at this as if it's acknowledging. What I continue to see is that this thing happened, right? But it's more than that, right? It is ongoing and escalating. The thing I wanted to ask about with regards to the restitution and cultural recovery, we keep.
No, we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
That's
we
it.
want to take it. We want to take it step by step. We want people to try to be as concise as possible, because we want to hear from everyone, but we want to make sure that we cover it all comprehensively. So I'm going to go to. I don't see another hand, so I want to go to legal and institutional justice. And hold on one second. I'm just going to give a little blurb. Reparatory justice must be recognized as a matter of human rights and international law. Durable legal frameworks, institutions, and mechanisms are required to ensure accountability, redress, and enforcement. So in terms of legal and institutional justice, are there any specific identification of what you really want to see included in that, other than the little blurb that I gave? If there are any gaps, any suggested additions, etc. So, okay, I see a hand already. Okay, Brother Sifiwe Baleka. And I'm not quite sure if you actually introduced yourself. I just kind of gave a little thing earlier. Briefly introduce yourself. So I know
Thank you. I know most of the people on the call, but my name is Sipiwe Baleka. I've been involved in the reparations movement formally since I joined in COBRA in the 1995.
But now just name and title. Just, brief introduction. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Not the bio.
All right. And I work on lineage restoration. My comment on this specific aspect of the legal cluster is that we need to understand and use the term sovereign African jurisprudence. And the reason for that is because international law as we know it is primarily an extension of colonial legal systems. And that when we try to adjudicate reparations, there is still the initial conflict of laws between what were the sovereign African jurisdictions at the time of the invasion versus the European jurisdictions. One reason, one quick example, and then I'm finished, is, for example, from the African legal mind, the past, present, and future are one.
Mhm.
And so we contemplate crimes that involve the ancestral realms that cannot be contemplated by the European legal mind or international law. For us, we really need to look closely whether or not we want to accept coming under the jurisdiction of international law as it exists today versus standing on principle on sovereign African jurisprudence. I wrote a 90-page study on this. I dropped it in the chat so that people can study it before the event in Ghana. Thank you.
So thank you, Brother Sifiwe. I will say that part of the Pan-African Legal Union, I might be saying PALU's the name wrong, body of experts that help to inform the underpinnings of the March 25th declaration calling for the transatlantic trafficking and enslaved Africans and internalized racial enslavement as the gravest crime, really went beyond current international law, but dealt back to, I don't remember the term that was called, but traditional African legal systems. And it was very specific. And I see another hand, Akil and Justin. I'm going to go back to Akil first, and perhaps people can be a little bit more.
Critique of their work and that
Excuse-
draft.
Say that again. I didn't hear you.
And I have a great critique of their work and that document. So that's
Is
why
that
I
a
mentioned,
negative critique or a positive critique? I'm just curious.
I would say it's a constructive critique.
Constructive. Okay, that's good. Let me just leave it at that. Okay, but thank you, and thank you for that addition. We'll make sure that is included. Akil Kafani.
Yes. So I want to just give context that the framework that we're developing uses African jurisprudence. The both the legal scholars and the other folks who are working on the document and myself has brought this to bear several times, so that the structure under which we're developing it. And the most recent point I brought up, and it is being incorporated into it, is a whole context of African spirituality. And so we're looking at both internal and external reparations. We're looking at how we heal ourselves. So that's an important part of this whole development. So it's not a linear or Eurocentric model at all. It's a critique of the Eurocentric model, so that the framework includes a great deal of folks working on it to ensure that there is an African way. In fact, the book that one of the books that I used in terms of our discussion was Baba Fukiao's book Mbongi, plus others, many others. And so then the folks as we're drafting it, it goes around the continent and beyond in looking at these things. So it's very much centered on some of what he's talking about, and maybe more expansive, because it includes lots of folks who are both legal and non-legal scholars looking at this piece.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
I wanted to aid that. Let me just, I want to say one other quick thing, and that is that I think a little bit of Ghana's presentation is taken out of context, because Ghana is considered the champion under the African Union. So the African Union actually was the body that brought this to bear, and then Ghana took this on because it was tasked with the champion. So we have a representative from the champion on the body that we're working on, and Sister Adwa. She's been working in the African Union system since it was the OAU, and so she's been around for 40 years navigating that space. And so then, with her being a representative directly from the president of Ghana, sitting on this committee we're on, gives us a lot of direction and influence. And so our document is actually going to have a discussion with the Ghanaian representatives before the conference. So there's a
Yes.
lot going on before and around the whole thing. And there's an understanding that there's not going to be a conflict between their development, because they're going to have a body of experts and legal experts at this meeting, but they are working in concert with the body that the two bodies we have.
Yes, and thank you so very much for that, because this is the precise reason why we convened this emergency consult, to ensure that our voices on this side of the Atlantic also are part and process of that whole process. And Dr. Kafani, I want to have some, we were supposed to have a conversation a while ago offline, but I want to go on and make sure that that happens. Okay. So we have someone else whose hand is raised right now, who is on the permanent forum of people who are African descent, Professor Attorney Justin Hansford, and we are on the part dealing with legal and institutional justice. What's your comment?
Thank you. Well, the first, Amankichi, thank you for gathering us. I think only you could have gathered so many so quickly, and I'm learning so much. I just wanted to say, I think in the statement, I do hope that we speak directly to the need to form a mechanism that will address the issues that impact people in the diaspora who don't have, they're not from the Africa or the Caribbean and don't have a formal governance-based voice, that we may be referred to as the sixth region. The permanent forum is a platform as well. But in terms of what is the outcome of this meeting, and I think that's for this delegation, that's one of our primary missions, is to ensure that that type of representation is not there only in physical presence, but also in the final documentation, that there are words that speak directly to the role and the voice that will be created for people like us who are in the diaspora, and our government speaks against us as opposed to speaking for us. So we have to find a way to include that in whatever documentation comes out of this.
Absolutely. Thank you. And that's really the purpose of the survey that you'll be getting. And it will not just be a survey that is inclusive of our voices here, but also the voices of those of CELAC, the community of Latin American states, CARICOM, those in the diaspora in the UK, as well as other places. So we are trying to make sure that our voices are in fact heard, and you all being part of this process on such an emergency last minute basis is greatly appreciated.
Can I
Okay,
add one more
Prophet. Yes, excuse me.
That's why one quick thing I was going to say really quickly. I'm also concerned about the agreements, documentations, exchanges between countries in the Caribbean and the continent and the colonizer countries. Is there a space for those who are not currently in those countries to have a voice? I know that's been very controversial. We had the Benin bronzes was one type of controversy, for example, that shows the complex nature of that relationship. So I'm putting the fine point on that, so we remember that there are a lot of negotiations that may take place as a result of this convening, and I just want to ensure that it's somewhere written in black and white that those won't be two-party discussions. There will always be space for people in the diaspora in those discussions.
So that is very well noted. And when you all do get the written survey, make sure that as many of us as possible makes that point very, very clear. Okay, so thank you for that, Justin Hansford. Prophet Anyanu Cox, and we're still on legal and institutional justice as part of Cluster 1, recognition and accountability. Prophet? And I know, Prophet, you're with the, what is it called? The working group of
ICSWG for PFAD. Okay, this is Prophet Anyanu Cox, and I am convener and co-lead for the ICSWG PFAD subcommittee on spirituality and sacred science. So I know we have a survey coming up. I'll put it there, but I wanted to go on the recording that the spirituality and sacred sciences be listed as a separate item and not get buried somewhere. I think that ahead of everything is the spirituality and sacred sciences.
Hold on. Wait a minute. We are getting to that. Okay,
Oh,
so
I didn't see it listed. Is it in
well,
there?
it would be to me that would be under restitution and cultural recovery. I think I
So,
might be
so I,
wrong. And there's
so my,
also healing, culture, and human development under cluster 3.
So my statement is that on the recording that I'm requesting that it not be buried because healing has aspects, culture has aspects, but spirituality and sacred sciences go back hundreds of thousands of years, actually, in terms of where Africa began. So for it to be clear, and even the bronzes and all those things fall under it because they were not crafted to hang on a wall. They were crafted as part of ritual and ceremony. So I know that Dr. Akil is on. He knows a lot about spirituality, but that is separate item, has its own item, because we have a lot of stuff that we can do in that area and falls under spirituality, that it not be buried. That's
Okay,
what I'm
thank you.
requesting.
Well noted. I want to go on to the next part under cluster 1 under historical recognition and excuse me under recognition and accountability is restitution and cultural recovery. Um, I, I can see my pointer. Can you all see my pointer swirling around? Or is that just what I'm seeing? Okay, that's probably just me. But anyway, I have my pointer on restitution and cultural recovery. The restoration, protection, and repatriation of cultural heritage, ancestral remains, sacred sites, and stolen artifacts, alongside the revitalization of cultural identity and traditions. So that's the last aspect under cluster 1. Is there any commentary in terms of anything specific that you would like to see in that area specific to us here in the United States and the like? Okay, Dr. Vicky Casanova Willis.
Hi, thank you. Yes, quickly, I wanted to mention that, culture and cultural recovery continues to be framed largely as, and it's not a critique, it's just an observation, and I think we have to shift it. It's overwhelmingly leaning toward objects and things, and sometimes museums and the contents of those things, but it intersects with institutional justice because it also applies to our institutions, which are living, breathing, right? It's not just HBCUs and PBIs, but it's the whole cultural genocide piece. So what I'm saying is that, again, not looking back to restore objects or things that were commodified and stolen, but looking at the active ongoing cultural genocide and harms, everything from the erasure of voices and people and legacies and research and poetry. So professors, all of that. And I just say that also to say it connects to me to an under counting, if you will, in the economic and compensatory argument, because I know I'm kind of getting ahead, but I'm not. We know in the human rights framework and just in life, all these are intersectional. So I'll stop there. I mean, I'll pause and put everything else in the recommendation. But I'm hoping that by sharing here, that also we can hear from each other and think about things even as we go back and do local reparations work. I'm saying cultural recovery is not just about restoring something. It also has a quantifiable harm that needs to be added to the reparation for stolen labor, which is the basis of the other stuff now. And it's drastically understated and undercounted. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, and I like that the quantifiable. I can't even pronounce the word harm. So thank you for that, Vicky Casanova Willis. Victoria Kirby York, introduce yourself.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Victoria Kirby York with the National Black Justice Collective. Thank you so much for pulling this call together. Under the cultural recovery piece, I wanted to lift up our own historical cultural norms. This past weekend, the AU made a decision to move in lockstep with the colonial code that came from Europeans, criminalizing African LGBTQ plus people, which as a member of the African diaspora here in the US also means motherland is not a safe place for me sadly, to return home to. None of us want a Brittany Griner situation where you go to return home and find yourself in jail. And so, we say the full diaspora must be included. That should also mean those of us who are LGBTQ, and being clear that these terms that they're fighting against right now aren't ours. They're not African. They're not innate laws that came from pre-colonial African traditional culture, because we've always been a part of African culture and community. You can find it carved in the walls. And so part of cultural recovery is pushing back against all of these things that came a part of colonialism. And that includes some of these laws that are targeting our own siblings, both on the continent in Ghana, who's looking at a law right now, but also those of us, who are seeking repair in the 6th region.
Victoria Kirby York, thank you so very much for that. And as I said, there's going to be a survey going around. Make sure as many people as you can forward it to registers specific opinions. And so again, thank you very much for that. Mama Afia Mwangansa.
Yes, I'm not sure whether this is the correct place, but I want to raise the ability to be returned for burial to the continent, if we choose to do that, and that arrangements are made for that to occur. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so very much for that. And Shahern Cruz, you're the last person I'm going to call on this, because I'm going to take it in a slightly elevated position so that we can make sure we get through it. Instead of going through each one, I'm going to read the whole cluster, and people can comment on the whole cluster to make sure that we get through all 4 clusters before we conclude at 9 o'clock. So Shahern Cruz, please introduce yourself and let us know what you have to say with respect to restitution and cultural recovery.
Hi, I'm Trent Cruz from BLM, Minnesota, and the St. Paul Recovery Act Community Reparations Commission. And like you said at the top, we want to make sure that the United States and the issues that people are suffering from here in the United States are addressed. So for restitution, I'd like to see some of land back. I know here in I-94, because of eminent domain, a lot of people were dispersed and lost their homes, were lost. And I know that same thing happened in Sacramento, it happened in Detroit, and it happened in communities all over the United States. Also, as far as getting our farmland back, or Black Americans were like 14% of farmers. We've lost about 90% of our farmland or land since Reconstruction. So I think trying to get Black land back for Black people in the United States. And I also think legal and institutional justice also deals, some of those legal institutional justice can also go into global governance, economic empowerment and development, and issues around procurement at the local, state, federal, and international level. Thank you. And thank you for pulling us together too.
Okay, thank you very much, Sharon. Reginald Muhammad, I'm going to have you hold for a moment, because I'm going to let you be the first one on the next aspect, the next cluster. And if you want to bring in something from the first cluster, you can. But I want to go on and go through the second cluster right now, which is structural transformation, compensatory reparations, so provision of material and financial remedies for historical harms, supported by practical and innovative approaches that address both past losses, present disparities, and projected future losses. That's compensatory. Global governance reforms, transforming international systems that perpetuate inequality, including global taxation, trade, finance, and debt architectures, to create a more equitable and inclusive international order, including reform of the UN Security Council. The next one, under structural transformation, economic empowerment and development, advancing economic transformation, development pathways that are locally defined and community led, ensuring reparatory justice supports long-term self-determined growth and prosperity, debt relief and financial justice, addressing unsustainable debt burdens and inequitable financial structures that constrain development, resilience, and economic sovereignty. And the last point under cluster 2, technology transfer and capacity building, promoting equitable access to technology, innovation, skills, and knowledge to strengthen institutional capacity, economic resilience, and future prosperity. And again, these aspects under these clusters did not come out of the sky. They kind of were called from different things that we are hearing and seeing around globally, okay, that we want to make sure that we have our imprimatur on some of these concepts that are circulating, and as Dr. Akil and Dr. Vicky were saying, are probably going to be part of what's going to ultimately be the outcome. So, Brother Reginald Muhammad, please introduce yourself. And we're focusing on cluster 2, but if you want to revert to cluster 1 as part of that as well, you can.
First off, thank you again for hosting this important and critically needed meeting. I'm Reginald Muhammad, the National Reparations Institute, also representing the Department of Political Science at Clark Atlanta University, as well as the Nation of Islam. And we have been doing this work for over 30 years. And I want to invite, since we're on the cluster 2, compensatory reparations, please, those of you all who have not had an opportunity, I can make sure it's available for you, at least the ebook, the National Reparations Declaration. We published it back 4 years ago, but it has been since updated, and I can send you out the ebook. Some of you all are discussing framework and everything else, but the National Reparations Declaration is actually a qualitative and a quantitative blueprint for Black redress. It's an 86-page document that has been reviewed by over 30 scholars. And of course, Dr. Ray Wimbush wrote the foreword for the book. And I will.
I don't hear you. Okay, you went out for a moment, but keep going, and keep going. Be concise. Yes, yes. I don't hear you now. You're going in and out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not sure why we're going in and out, but I'm right up on the microphone here. But again, this is Reginald Muhammad.
No, we got all that. Yeah. So, and I know you have a blueprint. Okay, and is there something you can put in the chat, or make sure that your views are part of the survey instrument that will be disseminated?
I would do exactly that. And again, what's key about it is that quantification scale is there, and it was developed over the last few years, and it will help you calculate the land situation, the stolen labor, the harm that has been done, and then two, the land question that has to be addressed. And we're talking, as the minister said, we're talking on a minimum of 8 to 10 states or millions of acres of land that has to be. Otherwise, we've compromised the reparations when we start talking about compensation or compensatory damages or compensatory reparations. That land question is there, and we address it in the National Reparations Declaration, the blueprint. And I'll make sure it's available for any of y'all who need the entire ebook. I can send it out, or you can go to our website, nationalreparationsinstitute.org. We're blessed to be the only policy center and think tank centered on complete reparations.
Brother Muhammad, thank you. And make sure you put that in the chat. I have not had the opportunity to go through the chat, but it looks like there are over 83 chats in there. I will be going through it. Trust me on that, and make sure that things that are in there become part of this whole process as well. So thank you. I want to turn to Robin Prouty right now. My sister, can you introduce yourself and let us know any of your comments with respect to Cluster 2, structural transformation?
Thank you, Nikichi. Thank you for allowing this opportunities for our voices to be heard. Again, Robin Prouty from the descendants of the St. Louis University enslaved, and being a descendant of the Jesuit Catholic priest order, I want to ensure that, being that the Pope, made a formal apology a couple of weeks ago, which how can we tie that into what we're doing today and making sure in terms of getting the Pope and the Vatican to also pay compensation for the transatlantic slave trade and the sanctioning of the plunder and taking of our land, of our bodies. So I hope that some way we can bring that into this a document, and that's what I wanted to say. And thank you.
So thank you very much, my sister, and I'm sure I have heard that described as a non-apology apology. So I'm sure someone will be putting in the chat or part of the survey, Brother Safiri Bikalenka, you know who I'm talking about, their analysis with respect to the Pope's non-apology apology and analysis around that. So thank you so very much, Robin Prouty, because you are a direct descendant of the atrocities that the Catholic Church rendered against our people. Okay,
Yes.
Brother Jamal Kwame Taylor, talk to us.
Peace, everybody. So, I think fits under cluster one as well as cluster two. I'm sure I'm aligned with this with several people that are on this call. I just wanted to make sure that while we're having this conversation, that part of the recognition, and also which translates into a structural transformation, is the recognition that Africans here in the United States consist of a nation. And that we should be treated as such, as an independent nation, not as just regular U.S. citizens, but as a nation, and as that being a part of what it looks like for recognizing the harms that were taking place in the past.
Well, I would just say ashe, 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 oh, and I hope that is part of the survey that a number of people put in there those four options we had as to a political future after our freedom was recognized with respect to the 13th Amendment. We are free people. And you cannot take a free people and tell them that they've got to become part of your family, i.e. a U.S. citizen, particularly since you castrated the father, raped the mother, sold your children off to your relatives. We had a right to be asked what we wanted as our self-determining future, whether we want to repatriate back to Africa, not to swim in the ocean naked, but with compensation, whether we wanted to go somewhere else as Haiti or the islands, how we were cruelly separated from family members and the like, whether we wanted to accept the offer of U.S. citizenship and strive to make a multiracial democracy real, or whether we wanted to stake our own claim on this land, negotiate with the indigenous peoples, and establish an independent black nation state right here on this soil. So all of those are options, and I was not going to, should not be giving my personal views with respect to this, but I know I will be putting my personal views as part of the survey, and I hope that you do too. So thank you so very much for that, Jamal Taylor. Okay, Ronnie Galvin. Okay, Ronnie, I know you are over there in Jamaica, right now, but I know you're going to be talking about from the viewpoint of when you and your wife were here in the United States. So talk to us and introduce yourself, please, Ronnie Galvin.
Yes, and Nikichi, thank you so much for putting this together, and just the way, thank you to the universe where our paths just keep intersecting in such beautiful, powerful ways. My name is Ronnie Galvin. My wife, Unique Redwood, we wrote a book in the tradition of Randall Robinson, We Quit America, Our Exit from a Country Designed to Kill Black People. We are still, I'm still fighting for reparations for Black people in the United States. So I still got my passport and all that. So we're still there, but we move around the world in so many ways. I'm sensing, and Nikichi, I've learned so much just in the hour that we've been on this call. I always learn when I'm around you, to what Justin Hansford said. But it seems like when we're talking about structural transformation, maybe it's implicit, but all of this seems to be quiet. And by the way, the work we were doing in DC was similar, quiet on the question of capitalism.
Okay, let me see.
Racial, can you hear me?
Yeah, my internet is screwing up.
Okay.
It's unstable. Okay. So
Yeah. So it feels like we're quiet on the question of capitalism, and certainly, what are we calling ourselves? The sixth part, right? Sixth sector. We certainly should have a lot to say about the reality and the impact of racist, capitalist, extractive, violent, patriarchal, planet killing capitalism. And if we don't actually speak to that in the context of structural transformation, we are setting ourselves up to undermine one of the pillars of the five remedies, and that with the non-repetition. There's no way in a racist capitalist system that Black people, that system won't figure out some way to kind of harm Black people again. And so something in the area of structural transformation has to deal with this question of capitalism, or whatever the flip side of that is. And so I think it was Gretchen Rohr somebody talked about more democracy here, but also maybe more democracy, more democratic economic forms, right? So I'm happy to share more about that in the survey. But since we're talking about structural transformation, I think economic democracy, that's right. I think we've got to name that. It's got to be sharp. And if we're going to go for structural transformation, let's go for the jugular.
Ronnie, thank you so very much for that. You froze up for part of mine. It was my internet, so I look forward to listening to the tape so I can get the full flavor of everything you were saying. But thank you very much, as always, for your contributions. I want to call now Shakira Abdul Ali. My sister, introduce yourself.
Yes, greetings, everyone. Shakira Abdul Ali, and I'm with Cobra. And I want to share this because I'm going to have to leave early, I think, and I want to focus on cluster 3. I want to be sure that we include a provision for when it comes to health and well-being and psychological rehab and all of that. I want them to include a provision for the enslavers, the colonialists, to acquire some healing and some I don't know, I guess the word is reclamation of their own humanity. Like, they need to learn how to be human. They lost that.
Well, I hope that's not tied to our reparations, because if they don't learn that, I don't want that to
well, here's the
prohibit
thing.
us.
Here's the thing. We want to demand that they do not repeat the harm.
Yes. Non-repetition. Yes.
They can't engage
Yes.
in non-repetition because they
Yes.
don't know how to do anything else. I was just having a conversation with my brother just a few minutes ago about the fact that part of the reason that they did these horrendous things to us is because they did those things to each other. They really have lost their sense of humanity. I mean, Resmaa Menakem talks about it in his book, My Grandmother's Hands. We really need to, we need that here in the U.S., where they have also lost their empathy muscle here. They need to learn it. And it needs to be a demand that we impose on them as a part of reparations, because otherwise, it's like throwing, a bucket of clean water into a sewer.
So, my sister, thank you so very much for that. And I'm going to take 2 more hands on this section of structural transformation, and then we're going to move into healing, culture, and human development. But we have registered your comments with respect to cluster 3. Thank you so very much. And yeah, they need some healing, no question about it. I don't want to tell my reparations to that, but put it in the survey. So now we have our dear brother attorney Roger Wareham, which I actually neglected to state when I spoke before about the March 25th, 2026 a declaration that it stood on the heels of the Durban Declaration and Program of Action that was 25 years ago, that Roger Wareham had a major part in, and I don't see him now. What happened to him? Is he still there? Roger, I think we lost him. I'm sure he was back.
He's here.
Oh, he's here. Okay.
Did
You slipped down to, I don't know what happened. So talk to us about, introduce yourself.
Good evening, and thank you, Nkechi, for pulling this together. My name is Roger Wareham. I'm a member of the December 12th movement. We're part of the group that organized 400 people to go to the Durban World Conference, which was 25 years ago. And there were two things I wanted to raise around this. One is that the conference next week is supposed to be next steps. And out of the next steps, they've created 3 bodies to deal with global advisory, legal, and artifacts. And the framework is pretty much what the resolution was talking about. I think the most important point we want to make is that regardless with whatever any of those bodies are going to be, that we have to be there represented. And I say we, I'm talking about those of us in the diaspora from civil society, not elected representatives, from civil society which is the majority of us in the diaspora, mainly except for the ones who are represented by CARICOM. So I put in the chat some suggested language.
You accidentally went on mute, Roger. Unmute yourself. Maybe I'll ask you to unmute.
Got it.
Okay, gotcha.
We put in the chat just some 3 sentences that we think is important in whatever negotiation goes on, that there must be guaranteed representation by and input from regional organizations representing the civil society African diaspora who comprise the overwhelming majority of diasporan people of African descent. And I think that should go through regardless, whatever one of those 3 bodies that they're talking about, that we have to ensure that we're represented there. So I think that's our most important part. And then
well, you're getting a lot of claps for that one. So make sure when that survey comes around, all of us that's clapping on that, make sure we clap back in the survey too. Go on,
right,
go on, Roger. Thank you.
Yeah, right. And simply because it's our force that really brought Durban and really brought the African group resolution. It was actually the African group and the CARICOM resolution, and it's going to be that force that's going to push things forward. And we also encourage people to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Durban on August 29th, because that's going to be part of the motion that will make the next steps, give some force to the next steps, because it'll be a representation of the mass struggle that is going to make all bodies deal with the issue of reparations. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we have 2 more on this cluster, and then we're going to go to the 3rd cluster. Vicky Casanova Willis, and then Alida Torre. Vicky, talk to us. You've already introduced yourself, so you can go on.
I did. Yeah. Yes, thank you so much. And I'm sorry to be speaking again, but on the structural transformation piece, the sister's comment about, or sister brother, regarding dismantling and addressing racialized capitalism reminded me that nowhere here yet have we stated the structural systemic the control arm is beyond police. So I don't want to say policing, but I put it in the chat. We have to figure out how to be safe, how to keep ourselves safe. And that is something that I think needs to be articulated here. How do we address the massive incarceration, right? And the lockdown and the retaliation and just the murders. They've done it before, they'll do it again. It has to be part of guarantees of non-repetition, and there have to be penalties for people who step out of line and continue to try to do the status quo. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for that. And that just reminds me that hopefully within the survey that people put in those 5 injury areas that NCOBA came up with decades ago: the black-white wealth gap, peoplehood, nationhood, i.e. the right to self-determination, the educational disparities, the health inequities, the mass incarceration, mass criminalization. All of those are elements of specific harms that are specific to our existence here, again, as I say, in the belly of the beast. Okay, Vicky Casanova Willis, and then we're going to go to cluster 3.
Did you say Alida?
Oh, I just said Vicky. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I meant Alida. Alida Torre. Alida, my sister. Parables of Sour. Go on and introduce yourself, Alita.
Yes, thank you, Nikichi, no problem. I understood.
Okay, it's all good.
So grateful, Asante Sana, for really pulling this together. This is so important. Graceful and just knowing to be a part of that here in California. I put in the chat two things for this cluster two, and I really just wrote down DOJ. And the reason is, if you all know Allensworth Town, if you know Port Chicago, we have specific sites that are run by DOJ, Department of Justice, that have been because of harms that have been done to us. And these are sites that I believe we really need to do state by state. I believe there should be a 50 state chart where it shows that DOJ has not only taken over the harms. If you know Allensworth Town, they put cement or whatever to stop the water for that whole town. For Port Chicago, they harmed the military that were bombed right there in that site and then took them to Mare Island and Vallejo. So these are things that they now are in control of. Right? So not has it been harmed, but now we, as those that live near there, families that have been involved, should really have this down, that state by state, we see this happening. Once harm is doing, then they decide what happens rather than it belongs to us what is decided. So I wanted to at least put that there for Department of Justice as one of the things for 50 states. Hopefully that can be a part of some of the work on number two, cluster two. Thank you for allowing us to speak.
Okay, great. Thank you so very much, Alita. Okay, we're going to go to cluster 3 right now. And Shakira, if you can pull that up a little bit more. Public health and well-being and psychological rehabilitation and social healing, education, knowledge production. I'm sorry, social healing. That's okay. So let me just give a blurb on that. Addressing the intergenerational, physical, emotional, psychological, and social impacts of historical injustices through comprehensive healing and wellness initiatives. Education, knowledge production, and cultural renewal. Preserving historical memory. Supporting research and scholarship. Reforming educational systems. And fostering knowledge production that advances truth, justice, and cultural revitalization. Let me see. What do we have next? Diaspora engagement and right of return. Right of return, repatriation, and diaspora engagement. We spoke to some of this already. Strengthening connections between diaspora communities and ancestral homelands through cultural exchange, mobility, citizenship pathways, and opportunities for meaningful engagement. Climate justice, climate and environmental justice, recognizing the disproportionate environmental and climate impacts borne by historically marginalized communities and advancing equitable access to environmental protection, adaptation, and resilience, and gendered responsiveness. Gender and intergenerational justice, addressing the distinct and compounded impacts of historical injustices on women, girls, youth, and future generations, while ensuring their leadership and participation, in repertory processes. Okay, we have a couple of hands right now. Victoria Kirby York, I think you've introduced yourself. I think already. So, what's your commentary on this cluster?
Yes, on the public health and well-being piece, of course, everyone knows the experiments that took place in Tuskegee, but there are so many other experiments like that that have taken place even on our military service, other military service members and folks who weren't in the service, folks who were put in Black-only tuberculosis sanatoriums in the 1900s. There were a whole host of harms that took place in those institutions. And then also the continued the negligence of the government in addressing HIV, choosing not to act, especially as it became the face of HIV became Black people and not gay white men. And so there's continued harms from just the lack of a government response. And then just having seen this gendered responsiveness piece, I didn't notice it earlier. I think some of my comments around cultural memory could still go on cultural memory, but some of the anti-women, anti-LGBTQ stuff that I was talking about would also probably fit under gendered responsiveness.
Yes.
And I realize most of us have been providing examples of harms, and I have a question. I was curious, should we also be sharing more like solutions
I
around how we
found it.
want the public health addressed?
Yes. For example, I saw something in the chat real quick that when it was talking about climate justice, it was saying, environmental racism. Use our terms as much as possible, particularly in the survey. Use our terms that we're using to make sure that our specific analysis of these concepts that are kind of been globally shared come to the fore. So the answer is yes. And again, the survey will be a main place for that. The survey should be focusing on solutions. Just what is the remedy. So thank you, Miss Kirby, Victoria Kirby, for that. Let's go to Davita Ingram right now. Davita, how are you? Introduce yourself
Hi,
and
everyone.
tell us your comments on Cluster 3.
Hi, this is Davita. I work on reparations in Seattle and Washington, and this is more a question.
Yes.
I'm thinking about what Justin Hansford said around how the U.S. dissented on the UN vote, and I appreciate the conversation about the right to return, but I also believe we need the right to remain. And I think in this particular audience, the question that I have is, how can we position our case so that we are not doubly hit by the notion of American exceptionalism, and so that we can clarify our terms? We are Black, we are Indigenous, and we are American. You can argue that we're displaced Africans. You could argue that we are American by demonym, and you can argue that we are Black. But we have so many diaspora wars in the US because long-standing domestic Black people, I don't care if you're Negro, colored, whatnot, we have a very difficult time naming to people who we are. And sometimes when we assert that, we are told that we are practicing American exceptionalism. I want to have a reparations case that allows the parts of me, not just Davita, but the parts of me, my community, the people that I belong to be able to remain in the United States if that's what they want. And I also want us to have information about what's happening on the continent so that we understand femicide, whatever happened, because the colonization of Africa happened in a way that's distinct from enslavement. And we need to know what that is and know what we're stepping into. So those are things I'm interested in.
Well, thank you so very much. And Sister Lily put in the chat that I was about to talk about the plebiscite. The plebiscite, people's vote to determine just who we are, what we want to be. As I mentioned earlier, I grew up under the framework of the New African Independence Movement that there were 4 options as to a future. And full-fledged U.S. citizenship is absolutely one of those options, striving to make a multiracial democracy real, but it's not by far the only option. It is the option that most folk only know about because that's the only thing that, seems to have been prevalently put to us. But as we see with the Supreme Court and voting rights and all of the restrictions, they don't even want that. So if those who want that option really have to be able to, with reparatory justice, have changes in policies and practices that will serve to make a multiracial democracy real. But by that same aspect, those who want to repatriate should have that right with full compensation in terms of seeking to reintegrate ourselves more fully into that African politic that we have been extracted from, and those who want to negotiate with the native peoples and establish an independent Black nation state here. Again, that's my option, but I know that that's not going to happen without a change in the policies and practices of the United States. This capitalist system. But again, I'm not supposed to be on my bandwagon talking right now. But all of these are things that, again, please make part of a survey, because these are, in fact, solutions. And a UN supervised plebiscite, which is, again, the philosophy that I grew up in, for us to determine our own political future is one of those options. Gretchen Rohr, we're talking about the international consultant extraordinaire. Gretchen, introduce yourself and talk to us.
Hey y'all, this is so wonderful. It can't be overstated in Kichi. Like you just you do the thing that all of us know is needed to be done. And thank you so much for bringing us together. Gretchen Rohr, all pronouns. I do work primarily with reform initiatives based out of Accra. That'll be hosting many of you all next week. I'm very interested in those that I don't know that are coming. Please email me. I'll drop my email in the chat. But also, I'm mostly here in the role of co-leading reparations with Movement for Black Lives. I don't think it can be overstated. So I really do want us to emphasize it throughout these clusters, the role that control of population and reproduction and family formation played in slavery and colonization and continues to play today. When speaking of gender responsiveness, I would even encourage it to be even much more broad, and where we speak about gender violence and gender-based violence, family violence. The violence that we are experiencing, the disruption of families continued in here in the U.S. Is also, it's continuing to be exported to the continent, and also the patterns and practices of reproductive control and the theft of Black children is just a pattern that continues to play out in every space of colonization. And so I see a lot of these reparation frameworks that groups, particularly survivors, you've got the folks in Belgium, you have quite a bit of organizing around trying to bring attention back to how so much of colonization is about control over the Black body, and specifically the Black body that reproduces. I know that folks want to be able to thread the needle very carefully as to what charter and the treaties that are being reconsidered right now by the continent and reproductive freedoms. But I do think that we need to be quite frank, and as it was stated earlier, about interpersonal and gender-based violence, much of the reason why it continues to increase, and even in those countries with the what are recognized that most democratic countries, South Africa having the highest rates of femicide, for example, is because of punitive frameworks, as was stated early. The criminal framework being the only response to violence has not created any more safety for all of us. But I don't want that to undermine our recognition that violence that is gender-based may be the fundamentally biggest and most clearest way to address the legacies of slavery. Thank you
very much for that, Gretchen. Brother Safiwe, you go on. I was going to let others speak, but you go on because you've been nice and concise. So let's go on, and you're next, Safiwe Belenka.
Thank you. I'll continue to be concise. I just want, on the issue of identity and legality, you have to go to the origin of the crime. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights in 2022 asked us to conceptualize Africa's claim. Who we are people who have maternal and paternal lineages in Africa, who were trafficked as prisoners of war, and who simultaneously suffered ethnocide and ethnogenesis. If we don't start answering the question from that origin and the identity of who you were at the moment the crime was committed, then we are going to have difficulties. Plenty of information about the origin, the legality, the illegality, the declaration of war, and the shift from slavery to war crimes.
Thank you very much for that, Safiwe Belenka. My sister Fatima Sack, talk to us.
Yes, greetings, Nkechi. Greetings, Nkechi. I just have one brief question because I did join. I had some technical issues. Can you explain the genesis of the survey and how it will be used? I do understand that it's allowing us to give our collective input, and there are some people who also joined the call late. If you had went over in the beginning, I had technical issues at the very beginning. That's all. That was my only question.
Okay, I'm going to speak more to that at the end. So are you able to stay till the end? We have about 30 more minutes. Is that yes?
Yabo, yabo.
Okay, so thank you. Janae Relaford, talk to us, Kansas City. Introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. This is Janae Relaford with the KC Reparations Coalition. Thank you so much, Sister Nikichi, and everyone on the call. I have a point. I really not sure how best to articulate what I'm trying to say, but I've done a lot of work here in Kansas City regarding high crime rates, specifically homicide, and there's just been a long trend, 10, 20, 30, 40 years of Black men, Black women representing 70, 80% of the homicides. And KCPD here is mostly using a criminal hand, but as we know, these issues are tied to our experience here in this country, why Black men and women represent the highest homicide, the victims on the victim and the perpetrator side. So I'm just hoping that the language or something in this document can speak to that regarding the public health, so that those who are being criminalized, for being perpetrators, 80, at those high rates, that they can receive some sort of mental health assistance rather than being criminalized.
Janae, thank you so very much. And those are very pertinent comments there. And hopefully your views and other folks' views will be captured as part of the survey. We're about to move to the next cluster, but I saw another hand pop up. So I guess we're still on cluster 3, healing, culture, and human development. And then we're going to move to the last cluster. Ajua Ayatoro, my legal mentor. How are you, my sister? Talk to us with your question or comment on cluster 3.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I do think the last comment may kind of be defied in some ways by the research on that topic. For example, we did a study in Arkansas and we found that white men weren't charged with homicides the way Black men were, for example. So I think we have to be very careful not to assume that the data is correct. I'm not saying that we don't want to look at health issues and well-being of the Black community, but some of that data on homicide is also because white people weren't charged. So I just wanted to raise that as a point.
Thank you, Ajua, for raising that. Thank you. I see another hand turn. Cruz, you have another comment to make with respect to this particular cluster? Churn, I don't think that was a legacy hand. I don't think your hand was up before. I think it already come down. You're on mute. Okay,
I'm
there
sorry.
you are.
I was saying Henrietta Lacks, a medical apartheid, and working on developing a framework for comprehensive reparatory healthcare for Blacks in the United States and abroad.
Gotcha. Thank you so very much. Yeah. Okay, so the last cluster, Shakira, if you can kind of move that on up. Global cooperation and implementation, cluster 4, international partnerships, implementation, and accountability. And I'm just going to leave it at that. And does anyone have any commentary with respect to international partnerships, implementation, and accountability? This is the last cluster, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the survey. Any hands? Oh, Dr. Kafani, Akil Kafani, part of the body of experts. Talk to us.
Yeah, so one thing I want to just suggest or mention is that some of the bodies that you all mentioned already are part of the discussion. So the Pan-African legal experts, the Pan-African Parliament, and other folks are, in the discussions of this whole push on reparations. And part of our obligation after we finish the framework is to then take that framework out to the very diverse diasporas around the globe and to get insight and feedback. I mentioned in the chat that last week we moved from looking at the year of reparations to having the framework be based on um, the decade of reparations, and so then that's moving the dialogue in a different direction and more expansive, and thereby mandating that we get a wider uh, I don't want to say buy-in, that's the wrong word, a wider participation in the discourse about how reparations will be. And I think all of the things that we've mentioned here are, or most of them, are part and parcel of what we've been looking at thus far. And, the last thing I'll say is that in terms of the implementation, the mandate from the or the the statutory mandate from the African Union is basically that we bring this document back to the heads of state, and so we're striving to do so by the end of November, and then we'll have another iteration that's going to happen probably by February. So it's a long process, but it's intended to be something that now we're saying it's going to take a number of years to make sure that we have the inclusive participation from all the partners, so that these partners will be folks in the diaspora. My point is that you all can use me as someone to not wait until that point. And so then I'm willing to take whatever I can to that body before the framework is even finished, to have other stuff incorporated to make sure that it's looked at and figure out how we can ensure that the diaspora particularly those in the U.S., but the African diaspora is included in the development of the initial version of the framework.
So Dr. Kafani, thank you so much. And as I said, we definitely must schedule very, very soon a conversation offline. So let's make sure that this happens like tomorrow. Things are moving at breakneck speed. Thank you. Okay, Sister Lily X, my dear sister, Youth Commission, talk to us. Introduce yourself.
Yes, Sister Lily X, National Youth Co-Chair of NCOBRA for the last 7 years. I'm speaking first from the accountability standpoint. I know that a big grievance amongst a lot of what I will just say the term Black youth, Pan-African youth, is what are the accountability structures, not just for the colonizers, oppressors, and those who have externally harmed us, but those harms that we have within each other, especially if we are going into full liberation and soon to be nation building. I know that per the oppressive European structures that be, especially when it comes down to funding and financing, that is a way that many of our interpersonal relationships have been broken. But that is also a reason that we don't see as many youth and young faces. And I'm not just talking under 40, I'm talking even under 18, because that is a high priority for them. They don't want just another organization that they have to fight over funds for. They want an actual space where they know that they can have actual sovereignty. So on the accountability piece, my only question is, where are those processes happening, and what is the container that is holding that? Are we trusting the UN to hold that container? Is it going to be PFAD, etc.? And when it comes to international partnerships, again, how are the youth being implemented in the form of even the co-governance that we soon to seek? Because while we respect and love and sit at the feet of our elders, we know that the youth are the ones who are inheriting the future. And so they intrinsically need to be a part of these decision-making conversations, etc. And so I'll just leave it there. I want to say ashe, thank you, bless you for all of you who are in this space. This has honestly been the joy of my week. I didn't even know this was going to happen. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that you joined. And I know there's been a lot of talk globally across the diaspora in terms of these international instruments and forums and restructuring or making them accountable. Okay, so that's one of the issues. And the issue of youth is always very, very key. Okay, Safiwe Baleka, you have the floor again.
Yeah, very quickly. So, Brother Akil, I'm going to take you up on your offer. I wrote 90 pages specifically to your committee on some advanced legal arguments that I would like for them to understand before we meet in Ghana. And then secondly, there have been some issues, accountability issues and representation issues. I was a delegate at that 2023 Accra Reparations Conference that mandated these commissions that you sit on. And there has not been proper accounting to the that were there and the process for how people were put on these commissions. And we keep talking about representation from particularly from Afro descendants in the United States. We have not informed about that process. We didn't participate. We don't know who represents us. This is the first time that I'm hearing that you sit on that commission. I think the African Union can do a better job when it comes to that. We need to know who are making decisions in our name. And I hope that you will be able to talk to us about who's on those committees that are making decisions and what that process is. And again, I want to talk to you about these legal.
Sifiwe, I think you cut off, but I think we got the drift of what you were saying. Before I go to the next hand, I can't even, everything kind of went away. I think it was Mama Fia. Shakira, I'm about to send you the, if I can, so you're better than I am, the survey link. Okay, Mama Afia. I see Reginald Muhammad, Alita Teray. Alita, I'm not sure if you put your hand down from last time, and Mama Afia. I don't know who was first because my thing is mixed up.
I was Mama Afia's before me.
Mama Afia. Okay, talk to us.
I want to unite with and affirm the point that Brother Sipiwe just made. I think that it is critical. In fact, it is essential to the authenticity, the validity, and the implementation of any proposal that comes out of whether it's the African Union, the UN General Assembly, or anything else that where folks have not had adequate consultation and consent to representation cannot be authentic and will not be accepted. And along that same line, that a part of the accountability and implementation has to include a mechanism and the resources for persons in the diaspora to trace their legacy, and to make their claims against the proper offending jurisdiction or country. And it is in that way that we can avoid the tensions and the hostilities that we have experienced internally, and that has been disruptive and will be disruptive if it's not addressed. I yield.
Okay, thank you very much, Mama Fia. I just want to ask Shakira, did you get what I texted you?
Absolutely, and I just dropped it in the chat.
Well, you was a little bit premature to drop in the chat because I just want to know if you got it. So y'all, let's finish this. Reginald, or Alita, I'm going in with you, Reginald. Alita Teray.
Yeah, I'm going to put it in the chat also, just because it's something that I hope people will look at. I know the language may be a little hard, but the accountability piece on what's happened with the National Institute of Health, human subjects. For someone that worked for the National Institute of Health before, number whatever his name, in the White House now, we used to have something you had to take as medical. And then, of course, we had COVID. So it was way before Leaks, Henrietta Leaks, as human subject, or
Yes.
Tuskegee
Yeah.
Airmen. So I do want folks to know that accountability should really be like, in Kichi, I want to give you shout out, like the International Tribunal, because those
Yeah.
medical injustices were inscribed within a lot of those pieces of the National Institute of Health that we had to sign to take any job in health. And so we don't even know how far, even with the bodies from COVID pandemic, what was happening to them, because they took out all of those regulations. So I believe the International Tribunal that was happened during COVID is another way we can approach that accountability for the medical harms since. So please check. I know it's a lot, but please check out the information in the chat. Thank you. Asante
Okay.
Sana.
Thank you so very much. Reginald Muhammad.
Yes, dealing with the international piece and how there be a link in cooperation. Again, minimum, when you're talking complete reparations, you're talking about 5 key select committees. Number 1, education and culture. Number 2, economics and investment. 3, public and mental health. 4, state and land acquisition. 5, public policy and legislation. And those have to be some, possibly some other select committees, but the minimum should be those at least 5 select committees. And also to consider the collective culture model. How do we link and have that cooperation internationally as well as domestically? Again, let's go back and look at the collective culture model, which breaks that down. Also, too, what will help internationally and even at the national level here is that the argument is always, well, they are not going to do this or that. We know that there's an international ruling class at the federal, state, and local level of Europeans. And what they will react to and how they even decide and come to the table and deal with reparations is, again, we presented that in what is known as the quadruple-based paradigm, because we know that just asking them to be or protesting, picketing, prayer breakfast, pleading, and petitioning is not going to make them do justice and come to the table in an equitable way. And again, that is the quadruple-based paradigm, because we look at the fact that there's an international body that has to be addressed. There's a national body as well as a local and domestic body that has to be addressed. And all of their decisions are based on, does it help or hurt their power base, their profit base, power base, and policy base, and privilege base. That's how, and even reparations again, will it help or hurt their power base, their profit base, policy base, and privilege base? That is what is known as the quadruple base paradigm. And I'm asking and all of you all to consider that, and even at the international level, so we don't waste another 15, 20, and 30 years dealing with corporations that owe us, governments that owe us around the world, and even the plantation owners that are still in existence, their families and their lineage who still in existence today. Let's look at the quadruple-based paradigm, because that pushes them. That allows them not to stall and again prevent and deny what we're pushing in the way of complete reparations.
Thank you very much. I'm going to let Vicky have the last word, because we're coming up on the 2 hours, and I want to go through the survey
Yes.
a little bit and answer any questions with respect to that. First of all, I cannot begin to tell you how much I really thank everyone for taking time out of your valuable schedules to help to inform this process. Vicky, you're going to have the last word right here before we go to the survey. Dr. Vicky Casanova Willis.
Thank you so
And I
much.
might say, I just got to say, she is the partner of the late great Stan Willis of Chicago, National Conference of Black Lawyers, and many, many other organizations. Really the architect behind the Chicago torture cases that resulted in the reparations settlement by the city of Chicago in terms of this torture of victims that predated a lot of the other reparation successes that we're seeing around the country. So Vicky, go on and talk to us.
Thank you for bringing that ancestor into the room. We know our ancestors are here, and I just wanted to say, that last point on, global cooperation, the accountability piece and all that. I think we also, as we're in this work, it's requiring folks to silo, right? To make sure that we are looking at any pieces that might fall off the table or be dropped or be left out, because timing is so important. But I'm just urging us to find ways to bring the strength forward and the commitment of our ancestors to continue to work toward reconnecting, right? Before we were so rudely interrupted, we could be different and have differences, but not be totally separated. So it's my hope and prayer that we can just think about, I think, like, what does success look like? And it's not just getting someone else to, to pay for or do what all these other things that we are going to win. But it's also about, like, how do we and those who are still here once this is over, once the dust settles, like, how are we relating to each other? Have we been able to become closer, et cetera? And some of that goes to remedies like the language access, the visas, I don't want to say relaxing of security and safety, but there has to be some additional ways to help us be together so we can work together. How can we collaborate if we can't even get to know one another across continents and borders? So thank you very much again for bringing us all together and for everyone here. I was trying to hurry, so I hope that made sense.
Thanks, always makes sense. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So Shakira, if you could put it back in so it can be the first thing that people are looking at right now, because I know there have been a number of things since you put it in the chat, and I just want to go over a couple of things with respect to it and answer any questions that I might be able to answer.
It's been dropped.
Okay, thank you. So basically, what is this? This did not come from my head, okay? This is a diaspora effort, global effort, actually, that is being utilized here, Caribbean, Latin America, UK, continent of Africa, to garner. It's going to go through exactly what we went through today, but I to really put down concretely from our specific global regions what is important to us. It's going to be synthesized. I'm not the one doing that, process, but just to let you know that this is part of a collective effort. I want to say that it's an opportunity to voluntarily contribute your perspectives and recommendations towards the development of a shared framework of collective priorities and principles of reparations. Your input will help identify areas of convergence and strengthen global alignment around key priorities for action. And by starting the survey, you're providing your explicit and consent to the collection and use of the information that you provide. The information will be used for the purposes of administering the survey, analyzing and consolidating responses, and developing recommendations and outputs arising from this consultation process, including proposals for inclusion in the outcomes document and related conference materials. And the conference we're speaking of is a conference next week in Accra. For those who are EU and UK participants, that's not us, but I want to state it for the record. People's personal data will be processed in accordance with applicable data protection laws, including the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, where applicable. By proceeding, you confirm you've read and understood this notice, consent to the collection, blah, 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 blah. That's not relevant to us here in the United States. If you want to proceed anonymously, you may do that, or you can, share your personal details. And if you do share your name and organizational affiliation, you are agreeing to be added to the list of organizations and individuals who contributed to this consultation process. So if you want to be listed as part of one of the entities that contributed to this global consultation process, then don't proceed anonymously. If you don't want to be so listed, yes, you have the opportunity to be anonymous. So we'll ask for your organizational affiliation. I want to make clear that there's confidentiality What I mean by that, all survey responses are going to be analyzed and synthesized anonymously. Individual responses will not be attributed to any participant in the analysis, reporting, or presentation of findings. Any insights, themes, recommendations, or conclusions derived from the survey will be presented in an aggregate form without identifying individual respondents. But again, if you want to be recognized as contributing to the process, then you will put in your name and organization or affiliation, if any, and that will be a separate document attached to the survey that will be part of the official record, I guess you could say. The goal is to gather feedback to help establish a shared framework of collective priorities and principles. And again, the feedback will be synthesized and proposed for inclusion in the outcomes document to be adopted at the high-level conference in Ghana on June 18th. I just want to stress that this input into the survey does not guarantee its inclusion. But what it is it's an effort to be inclusive of the range of perspectives across Africa and the diaspora. So again, the outcomes document that will be the result of the conference, high-level conference next week, will support the next efforts in the implementation of the landmark resolution. We talked about that before, ARES 8250, the Declaration of the Trafficking of Enslaved Africans and Racialized Shadow Enslavement of Africans as the gravest crime against humanity. And so again, just in conclusion, kind of this part, by contributing to this process, what we are doing is helping to build global alignment around shared priorities and principles. And with this alignment, we can take a coherent and a coordinated global approach to reparations and the implementation of the resolution. So when you go through it, you'll see the same things that we just went through collectively, of which we do have a recording of. We do ask that people identify their country because, again, this is global. And for each area, and these are the areas we just went through, the acknowledgement and apology, the legal and institutional justice, restitution and cultural recovery, compensatory reparations, global governance reforms, economic empowerment and development, debt relief, healing, culture, human development, global cooperation, and the same things that we just went through. But to describe what concrete remedies that you would like to see emanating from here in the United States. And upon information and belief, because I have not done the survey myself, because I just actually got it. Upon information and belief, you're able to put links. I know a number of us have links to numerous documents. So finally, I just want to say one thing that's really important for the reviewers is, are these priority areas, those that we have discussed, are they adequate? Okay. Is the framework that has been discussed comprehensive? And if not, what's missing? How would you modify it? All of those things. This is the opportunity to let your views be known. So I see some hands and we still have time. So I'm great. I'm going to, Reginald, I think you just spoke. I don't know if your hand is up again or if it's legacy, but I'm going to call on Adjua first because I see her hand. So yours was legacy. Put your hand down. And Adjua Ayatoro, you have the floor.
Yes, I just wondered who is going to represent us, and I know it's not a formal representation, we didn't pick delegates or anything, but at the meeting in Ghana, who will be there that will hopefully be taking messages from this dialogue as well as the survey?
So I plan to be there, and I know D12 is sending representatives there. I know Vicky Casanova Willis is going to be there. I don't know if you plan to be there and want to acknowledge that you plan to be there. The question is on the floor. I see Kim Poole's hand. I don't know if she has a question. She's letting us know she's going to be there. So Kim, I'm going to call on you next. But if anybody, if you want to put in the chat, I know Roger has specific representatives from D12 that are going to be there, but I know during the time that I'm there, I'm going to do all that I can. I'm sure Gretchen will be there, I'm presuming, but I'm going to make sure that views that we have discussed and what comes out of this survey document is well established amongst the persons there. And I see some hands. I'm going to go call on Kim Poole next. Kim, how are you? Our arts ambassador, cultural ambassador. Kim, talk to us. Introduce
Greetings,
yourself.
Kichi. I'm an artist, just like you said, and I love to create things, especially in this recent era of our work with the Teaching Artists Institute, work that I see as an expression of cultural reparations, which really brings me to my question around systems thinking and the process. I think the outcome is only half of repair. How we win matters. And I'm wondering if this survey is any way connected to the great reparations framework that was developed at CELAC Africa, you know, the first historic South to South nation state conversation between the community of Latin American and Caribbean states with the African Union took place March 18th through the 21st. And as a result of that, very similar to what Ghana was about to do or is about to do. And at the same time that they submitted the resolution to the United Nations, this practice in operationalizing a global reparations framework was taking place. And now I feel that in some ways we're doing this process again, and it doesn't seem to be much mention about some of the groundwork that took place between March 18th through the 21st at the CELAC convening. I know that under the leadership of the Colombian government, I myself was invited by Vice President Francia Marquez, and between the African Union and the community of Latin American and Caribbean states, they represent 2 billion people. And if that isn't being acknowledged and we're doing this again, just as a cultural reparations advocate, I'm wondering about the process and how we, as a form of repair, not duplicate what's already been done and instead find ways to connect those recommendations to what will continue to be gathered, because it will take multiple efforts to achieve what we need and what we deserve as global African people. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute that.
So, Kim, thank you for that. Can you just reference the specific framework that you're talking about? I'm not sure which framework that you're talking about.
So I could put you in contact with the Office of the Vice President, Francia Marquez of Colombia. I know that you already know her alongside Epsy Campbell and Kamala Harris, one of 3 to ever hold the position in the Western Hemisphere, and the cultural reparations framework I created. I contributed that to the global reparations framework that was developed, or they began the development of that at the CELAC Africa South to South cooperation convening that took place March 18th through the 21st in Colombia. And for the first time, all of the Latin American and Caribbean states connected with the African Union, and there were major contributions.
Gotcha. I got you. I hear you loud and clear. Let's connect offline with respect to that. And thank you so very much for sharing that. Let's definitely connect. I want to connect on a number of different levels with you. So that sounds good. I do know that Colombia is going to be doing a consult tomorrow, similar to what we did today. I do know that. So I presume the issues that you're raising will come up as a result of that emergency consult that they'll be doing. So thank you. I see Roger Wareham's hand again.
Yeah, simply.
Roger?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
Just to let people know that we're sending a delegation to Accra, and we plan to have a report back on that to the community on June 24th. It'll be in Brooklyn. We'll probably work out some sort of streaming so that we can let people know what happened. But keep that, mark that date, and we'll give the list the information so Nkechi can get it out to whoever the list that she sent out for today. Because we think it's very important. Anytime we participate in anything international, it's got to be brought back to the community so that people can be informed on what's happening.
Thank you so very much, Roger. And I'm going to let that be the last word because that was a perfect wrap up, a report back from that. And I hope that will be streamed or some type of live cast so that those who aren't in New York will be able to avail themselves of that as well. Again, thank you everyone for participating in this process, this emergency consultation on the very last moment. The chat is extremely rich. I'm going to look forward to going through it. Please fill out the survey that's there. And I might add, if a specific question is not raised that you want to answer, that's part of the chat, get it up in there some kind of way, shape, form, or fashion. And the more people they see or hear saying the same things, the more likely it might be hint, publicized, etc.
I don't see the survey.
Be included. Okay, well, Shakira, can you put it in one more time? It's been in there twice so far, but she's going to put it in again. With respect to our particular process here in the States, we meaning the organization that I direct, the Reparation Education Project, is going to be receiving the results so that we'll know. And again, those who want to be identified as being part of this process, please don't choose the anonymous route, or else we won't be able to list you formally as part of the consultative body for this. So again, thank you. It's 9:00, and again, I appreciate everyone taking the time and effort. Feel free to share the survey amongst your colleagues, your organizational members, and the like. And I love you all. I'm going to kind of close out, but I want to kind of look through the chat. So I want to kind of close this part out, if that's okay. And there is a recording of this, so we'll figure that out. Okay, love you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Shakira, for serving as my techie person and the rapporteur that we had taking notes. Thank you.
Beautiful work, Nkechi. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I'm in the chat. I'm going to go off camera. So if anybody else wants to look through the chat as well.
I hope you caught, if you caught 1/10 of that, you caught a lot. That was a lot, Shakira, to grab. So thank you for that.
I don't see the 3 dots to save the chat. Can somebody help me do that?
Is this
I
it?
got you.
Yeah, can somebody,
They are there. I did save it to my hard drive, so I can send it to you.
Okay.
Thank you, Nkechi, for organizing this.
I see the save chat. I usually don't have to save it. It usually pops up, but since you said save it, let me go and save.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to turn off the recording. Hold on. Record. Stop recording.